face ran into the microphone because I'm a professional. And I hadn't shaved this morning, so it was a scratchy sound too. And there's a pop filter, so it's foam on beard. That's what the name of that composition is.
Foam on beard.
Yeah, well, I mean, ideally an AI would be able to filter that out, but I don't think I paid for the ultra premium version of the AI to take that.
Well, so what did you learn about that?
I learned to move my thing that I play closer, or to do what you've told me 100 times to do and just pre-record it and play it.
Yeah.
I just like I like it when the mood strikes me in the moment. I'm not sure it's good, but I like doing it.
See, you are a jazzer at heart.
I don't think I like the word jazzer.
Yeah, you're a jazzer.
A jazzer. No, I can't do it. Last time we talked, I told you I was going to go learn something.
Okay.
Something specific, something demonstrable, something measurable. You know, like a narrowly scoped thing I was going to learn. And I kept thinking of what the thing was I was going to learn. And I was thinking about some coding stuff, and I was thinking about some art stuff. I thought maybe I could learn a new scale, or even go crazy, learn a whole new song. Instead, I learned how to beat this boss in this Pokémon video game that my kids have been playing. Yeah. That's what I learned.
So did you learn, or was it just repetition?
This is the debate. I don't know. I mean, I also there were a couple other mechanical things that went wrong. So I learned how to change the license plate bulbs in my car. But I've done that before, but I didn't remember how to do it. So I did the same. I mean, I would say that step one of doing that thing is find the video on the Google machine.
For sure.
And
anything.
Almost anything. Well, yeah. I don't know. That's not true. Because if you have to Google every sentence in Spanish, then you haven't learned those sentences.
Well, that's not a how-to. You could Google how to learn Spanish.
You could Google how to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not clear on whether I learned how to change the license plate bulbs, or I remember it better than last time, but it had been years since I did it. I got to take a quick aside. So this is a bone to pick, an axe to grind.
Oh, here we go.
So I have a 2011 Volkswagen, and
please tell me that you have neon lights under said Volkswagen.
No, I don't have. So this story relates to custom lights, but it's not neon custom lights.
Okay.
It has a a light bulb failure indicator on the dashboard. It's one of the orange lights that I showed you. There were several. This was one that was the light bulbs. So the light bulb failure indicator light came on years ago. I'm like, I don't know which light it could be. Check the lights. It turns out that I had one burned out license plate light. There's two white lights above your license plate on this car. They take little tiny bulbs, and they're very easy to replace. I go to the store. I'm looking for the right bulb, and they have an LED version and an incandescent version. And I think to myself, well, if I get the LEDs, they'll never burn out, ever.
Wrong.
No, correct. They never burned out, but their power draw is like 10% of what the incandescent is. So the light bulb out indicator stays on all the time, because the way the warning light on the dashboard works is it's looking for a certain amount of voltage draw. And when you decrease the voltage draw by putting in LED light bulbs, that thing comes on. And so I'd lived with intermittent light bulb warning light on the dashboard, assuming that it was these license plate lights for years. But then the check engine light came on. Now I've got two orange lights on the dashboard, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I look like an Uber driver.
Are you?
No. So I get the doohickey, the OBD2 scan tool. You know what this thing is?
Mm-hmm.
So you plug this doohickey in under the dashboard, and it used to be super expensive, and you had to go through a dealer to get it. But now, one little USB to Bluetooth, or not USB, a Bluetooth dongle. It has a little Wi-Fi network that sets up from your car, and then you buy an app for, I don't know, $20 or something, and you can read the codes. So I read the codes, and I have a manifold absolute pressure. I don't know what the code is.
That's a sensor too. That's also a sensor.
And so I do some research about what this error would be caused by, and I want to say I replaced the part a while back, and then the issue came back, so I checked it again. According to the internet, it's just something wrong in the engine control unit, the ECU. So the computer on the engine is saying there's a threshold that's set too narrow, and so the fix for this is you get a software update and it changes the threshold. So instead of the bar being, I don't know, 10 percentage points wide, it goes to 15 percentage points wide from the median, and then you don't get the warning anymore. And I'm like, the car's out of warranty. This is equivalent to an ECU flash. This is a $700 repair because of this tiny little quirk in the software. I'm not doing that.
But that then introduces a nice game of will my engine fail roulette, because you're you're living off the understanding or the awareness or the presumption that the check engine light has something to do with this software glitch that you know is just a software error. But could it be also that there is a genuine problem with your engine and you will be stranded on the beltway trying to get to somewhere fun?
So this is something that I've learned, right? I know the threshold of my knowledge. The threshold of my knowledge, it stops before I am comfortable ordering an aftermarket ECU flash and installing it with the assumption that this would fix the problem. I'm not confident in that, but I am 100% confident that if the only code that the engine is throwing is this one code, and I've searched and searched and searched and searched and searched and replaced the part and looked for all other possible explanations, and I've looked for the criticality of this problem. As long as the only code is that code, the engine is not going to blow up and leave me stranded.
So,
I'm absolutely confident in that.
if you wanted to learn how to replace the EC flash in the computer, how would you do that? Would you YouTube it?
So I'm at the point now where I have this theory in my mind, which is if the fix from from the dealership, which is the factory approved fix, is an ECU flash is a software update, but the fix is an ECU flash, aka a software update to your engine computer. I think that for the same $700, I should get a Volkswagen tuner's flash for more horsepowers, which will also fix the original issue. Now, God knows how many new issues getting an aftermarket tune would give to the car. But at that point, now my support isn't coming from a dealer who's trying to support a 15-year-old car with God only knows what random software things. Now the support is coming from whoever I buy that from and whatever trusted tuner I'm going to. It all seems like a terrible set of choices. So what I need to do is find someone who has flashed the engine in their equivalent vehicle, which I think is more work than I'm going to do. I'm just going to live with the light for the foreseeable future. But the point of all this sidebar to talk about my dumb lights and my dumb old car was I want the light bulb light to go out. So I've only got the one light that intermittently shows up, because then you pull the code, you can clear the code or you can leave the code. But as long as it's that one code, which requires a periodic checking of is the check engine light on for that one thing that I know is the issue, or is the one single warning light for every single possible thing that could go wrong, is it on for like the 20 other things that would be critical? So the issue is that, I don't have a new enough car to have a little computer in the dashboard telling me, oh, this is I don't know, your front O2 sensor is failing or out of range. It doesn't actually say failing, it says out of range. Or then your rear O2 sensor is out of range. See, if you buy a new car, it'll like tell you all the details right there. You don't have to go to your phone. I don't know. This is why I was like, forget it. I'm not learning anything about this stupid car or how to change these dumb light bulbs. I'll change the light bulbs. Maybe it'll fix it. I'm gonna go play Pokemon.
And beat Slay the
His name was
king.
like Arcanine or Arcanius or something like that. He was a big giant lion dog thing. Maybe a lion's not a dog. A lion's a cat. Anyway, it
Could
was made out of fire. In addition to being, it was huge, like 20 times bigger than me, made out of fire. I had to throw sacks of powder at it. They were magical powder of some kind. And
like cocaine
could
magical
have been
power.
cocaine. Well, the theory was that I was calming down the giant fire dog lion.
So not cocaine.
Is cocaine a sedative?
Cocaine is definitely not a sedative. Not that I've ever experienced it because I haven't, but it's very much a stimulant.
I feel like the light bulb changed where I had to go and Google it, and the beat the boss in the game. They're both fleeting. I didn't learn anything from either one.
Yeah,
I feel no different. I feel no more knowledge. But your explanations of learn a thing were always pretty like high-headed conceptual stuff. And I was like, get back down to earth. What's your equivalent to, you learned the button combination to do the move to throw the powder sack at the giant fire lion dog.
but see, you brought up a point subconsciously earlier that I think is interesting in that you've replaced or you were familiar with the light bulb, the one of the light sensors that was on your dashboard. You've done the thing before, but you forgot how to do the thing. So I'm in the context of how we learn and what do we learn? Do we learn forever? Do we always know something? It's just re-stimulating those pathways, those neural pathways
Mm-hmm.
to learn that thing again. And then how much of the new thing that we want to learn is just the same neural pathway to something else that we've learned. It's just making that connection. Like
Well,
I'm
here's the difference. So I didn't learn how to fix the light bulbs in the sense. I mean, maybe I did. If you include the look up the instructions for it as part of the process, then I learned it. But I did learn how the engine control unit works and how that relates to codes and how that relates to reading a code and how that works to diagnostics. So I mean, I know I clearly. I mean, not this is. I'm not saying that's like you should know it, but obviously I know more about the engine diagnostics for this car than you do.
for sure.
Right, which makes sense because it's basically just I learned how to manage having an old car and keeping it on the road, number one, and I learned the exact signal chain of, sensor to engine control unit to code to app to Google it and read what the code means. So I did learn that, but I didn't learn it this time. I learned it, I don't know, somewhere along the way from doing it. And I don't even think I set out to do it. I just set out to put this stupid light out.
So did you ever have a vehicle where your ability to get around depended on you being able to fix the vehicle?
Yeah, I had a 1980 Yamaha 3-cylinder motorcycle that I inherited from my uncle who passed away, and it included things like make sure the battery has water in it because otherwise it won't hold a charge. And I often was on the side of the road with that motorcycle, which I long ago got rid of.
Why? I figured that's the type of thing that you would keep around.
Well, a couple reasons. So the biggest reason was learning enough of it to know how difficult it was going to be to keep on the road. So things like for a motorcycle of that age, it's carbureted, and generally speaking, you're going to need to clean the carbs from time to time, and you're going to need to potentially replace the jets, which are these little brass machined bits. And they're because it was a 3-cylinder instead of a 4-cylinder or a 2-cylinder. There were very limited options for aftermarket parts for this thing, and so knowing that it needed a once over and all the rubber was failing and all the rubber parts were going to need obscure sourcing or basically custom making the new stuff, plus a bunch of engine parts were going to need work. I was going to have to learn how to set points to make it actually function correctly. I mean, as a engine project, it was both very informative, but also there's no way this is going to be worth the time and effort and energy. And I moved to an apartment, so I didn't have a place to work on it really. I didn't have a full tool set. It was dangerous to ride a motorcycle here, and I wasn't that interested in it. You could buy a new motorcycle that works well, not new, but new to me. That's modern and fuel injected and completely functional right as you buy it for $2,500. I'm like,
No.
there is no way that this nostalgic item is worth it.
What's the purpose of building a 3-cylinder?
We have more, I don't know, more power. It's the balance between the packaging and both the amount of power and the power delivery. So more cylinders generally means the engine will run smoother. Uh, and a 4-cylinder engine takes up more space than a 3-cylinder engine. I have a 5-cylinder Volkswagen now, so I've owned a 3-cylinder vehicle and a 5-cylinder vehicle.
Well, vehicle, you consider motorcycles vehicles, I guess.
What else would you consider them? Pokemon?
Vehicle-ish.
I mean, I don't know what to call it. Dictionary definition has to include motorcycle. You know how you talk about how you're watching a different movie?
Yes.
I think thinking a motorcycle is not a vehicle is a different movie.
I just assume, yeah, probably.
What about a farm tractor? Would you consider that a vehicle?
No. Oh, okay. So modern farm tractors. Have you seen one?
No. Well, I have, but no, I'm thinking of like a very typical,
Like
you
old
know,
John Deere
like a cartoon character would drive.
open seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have so much nostalgia around farm machinery. Like, I can't explain it. Not necessarily all good.
I feel like I'd rather have and keep up a farm tractor than a 35-year-old motorcycle
Well,
by far.
you're not that anyone does it for this reason, I don't think, because it's a money loss no matter how you shake it. But the value of antique tractors is significantly higher than like a dirt bike motorcycle. Not necessarily like an Indian or some really classic relic, an old Harley, whatever. But tractors are worth a ton of money. Antique tractors are worth a lot of money.
I don't know. I think I'd have to drive at least 20 miles to get to Antique Tractor Town. I'm in Virginia, which is totally a friendly state to tractors, but I think I'm in the wrong part.
Yeah. Did,
What about golf carts?
they're not the main streets of Alexandria are not necessarily populated with tractors.
No,
Golf carts. So my neighborhood,
I know.
yeah,
You have like cart paths, and everyone's like Terry by a golf cart.
yeah.
So you
Well,
would put golf cart ahead of motorcycle on your list of vevehicles.
see, I
Things
don't
that you
think of a,
consider a vehicle.
I don't think of a golf cart as a
Why
vehicle.
don't you just say car then? Why not car?
Device, travel device. They're toys.
I've owned a car. I've owned cars that were semi-reliable, but I've never owned a completely unreliable hunk of crap, leave me stranded on the side of the
Oh,
road
I have.
regularly kind of car.
I have. That's why.
That was the motorcycle. But while I had that motorcycle, I had reliable means of transportation at my disposal as well.
So let's do Bob Barker's Showcase Showdown here and see if you have any idea the cost of a golf cart.
I don't know how to play the prices right. Is this where I just pick a number that I
Yeah.
think a golf cart would cost?
Yeah. And not like one from the 70s that you can find that might or might not operate from, some salvage yard.
I think if you're looking at an entry level 2-seat or like 2-seat with a bonus jump seat in the back golf cart, there's no way it's less than like 3K.
No, not even.
I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised at all. Are we talking gas or electric? Not that I think it matters that much.
Either or.
$8,000.
You're going to be really, really lucky to find a piece of trash for $5,000.
I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised if if Terry's neighbor who just popped out and bought a new golf cart, for it to shock me, it would have to be more than like 12 or 15K.
That exists.
But your normal golf cart,
Yeah,
12 to 15, you can get there.
8 to 12.
Do you know how much a Vespa costs? Little scooters.
No, but how do you come down? How much? First off, tell me.
The smallest, cheapest Vespa in the United States is like 6K.
God.
And that's for like a 50 cc. So this thing can't go on the highway. It's got like a 35 mile an hour top speed. But you can buy a Honda Metropolitan, which is just a complete knockoff of a Vespa. It looks more or less the same, and those are like $2,500.
Yeah, so I bought a used, and I was going into my freshman year of high school, bought a used, I think it was a Honda 50. I don't know. It was like a little, it would go like 35 miles an hour. It was a scooter,
Yeah.
and that's how I'd get around. But everybody and their brother wrecked this thing. Like this thing, by the end of its life, you couldn't tell what color it was, basically because the side tanks, the panels that covered the motor and all that were concrete scrape gray.
What
And
what year was this? Either the vehicle or you.
like 1990.
So the Honda Ruckus hadn't hit the scene yet.
No.
That was much later than that.
Yeah.
Dude, I have no idea what was scooter popular in 1990. I
Well,
didn't get
this
into scooters until like the 2010s.
I don't
You
I
don't you
don't
don't follow scooters
I
still?
don't come down favorably on scooter culture.
What is scooter culture?
Just the whole, cafes and open collars unbuttoned down to the middle of the chest, and cigarettes, newsboy hats, just scooter
I
culture.
think you've imagined that. Because
No.
when I see a scooter in my local environment, what I see is someone with trash bags on their feet as boots, and like the helmet, a bike helmet on backwards, and they're talking on the cell phone. I mean, sure, they're still smoking a cigarette, so that part's in common. And
Yeah.
they're like struggling to get up a hill in the far right lane, maybe in the dirt. They're zigzagging through traffic once the traffic stops, but they're basically someone who's looking to die.
So
And they spent like $150 on some Chinese import.
when I say scooter culture, I'm thinking more of Europe and not here. I would assume most of our scooter culture here is exactly what you described.
It's the culture of both desperation and aspiration.
It's let's say for what it is. It's the culture of DUI and I can't drive a car.
Right, that's where I was going to go next.
Yeah,
I've lost my license and
exactly.
or never had one to begin with.
I've probably lost. I totally, yeah. I
It's like it's better than walking, but barely. How
You've
did you
got
get it when you were too young? So when you were between 14 and 18, what was your primary means of getting around?
I hung out with my brother's class,
And they
so
had golf carts,
they drove
golf carts,
cars.
regular cars. So
Yeah,
vehicles. They drove vehicles.
automobiles,
Trucks or cars?
both.
Both.
Uh, Rural Southern Indiana, trucks were not uncommon.
Did most of the people that were in your close circle either have a car or a way to get a car?
Yes.
See,
Oh yeah.
I think that separates. So around here, there were two types of people. Like I grew up not far from where I live now, and the people that didn't have a car or access to a car while I was in high school at that age, um, some of them they just didn't have a car. So they either didn't have enough friends who also had a car, or they liked to walk. There was one kid, I can't remember his name, and it doesn't matter anyway. But like I would see him walking miles and miles and miles. So places that were a 15-minute drive away, you'd see him just walking down the side of the road, like down the busy avenue with no sidewalk or anything. He's just walking because that's where he walks. And then he was the first kid I knew that took the little local connector bus as well. So if things got really desperate and I get really far, or if it was raining, then he'd grab the connector bus for 25 cents or whatever. But he never had a car. I don't think he wanted a car. I think he just liked to be independent. As far as I know, he didn't have any friends, and he just liked getting from place to place on his own. Then you had, like, for any friend group, there'd be at least one kid who had a car that was either theirs or they had bought, or their parents had allowed them to have, more or less exclusive access to the car. But then the other half of, people who don't have cars, like people who are adults trying to get to work and don't have a car, is a non-trivial part of the population here. And I don't know, man. I feel like there's a huge gulf between every point in my life I've had a car or something like it to be able to get around, even if it's a busted shit heap that I have to really struggle to keep on the road. Like the difference between a $500 car and no car in the United States in this day and age, except for in the biggest cities, huge difference.
Okay, so I tried to not take us to esoteric topics all the time, but you brought it up. So it's a thing. It's a real thing. Gen Z drives, and I don't have the number at my disposal, but the number of Gen Z aged kids, people,
Gen
young
Zers.
adults, Gen Zers that doesn't get a license, or it's markedly later when they get their license. They just don't want to drive. They don't want
Yeah.
to drive at the same rate we do. Why?
Well, did you feel like driving was an indication of freedom and
Had
ability to get around?
had to have a car.
Rite of culture or rite of passage?
Yeah, had to have a car. Had to, was non-negotiable. Everything in my life was geared around getting a car. My social life, getting, autonomy, had to have a car.
Yeah, cars were absolutely central to all socialization of any kind.
In fact, if you were a man who wanted to date or pair off in whatever sense, in our generation, my generation, if you didn't drive, good luck with that.
I think that might have been more unique to a area with a smaller population. There were definitely non-driving dudes who did fine. They might have had open collars and cigarettes and cafe culture.
Scooter, they drove scooters, Vespas.
I mean, I don't know. Let's go find a Gen Z next time who doesn't know how to drive and ask them what they do instead. What
Bum
did you what did you
rides.
learn what did you learn instead of
Oh,
instead of
okay.
driving?
So the reason why I made that statement and I'm interested in that is because I don't think that's unintentional. I think
Oh,
that's an intentional thing.
I think it's. Oh, I'm not going to speculate. I will say, if I had had a cell phone with the power of the internet at my fingertips, I would have cared a lot less about driving.
Or in the same way in the 1930s or 40s or 50s, whenever Standard Oil and all of the big auto suppliers basically bought their way out of public transit.
Uh-huh.
Same kind of thing. I think I think Gen Z not driving has some tentacle to the intentionality of public policy. That's what I think.
Let's come
And
back to.
not that that's a bad thing. I'm
I
not
think
saying
I want.
that's a bad thing.
I want you to flesh that out and come back to me
Oh,
with.
geez.
It's
Okay.
gonna be Terry has a bone to pick with with public policy and transportation.
No, I love it. It's just when I say I feel like I'm watching a different movie, it's those types of things. Like that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't have there. Other generations, we grew up with technology. We grew up with the internet. It's not technology. Like why, when you have things that change in mass like that, there are drivers behind it. And I'm curious about that. Not, I want to make a judgment on whether or not it should or shouldn't happen. Who cares? I'm just curious about the real reasons of, the intentionality behind things like that.
All right, I'm gonna probe you on it. Speculate. I'll let you speculate.
Are you going to make me use Google?
No, use whatever you want. But I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions to flesh this out further. So come prepared.
All right. We'll
See you
do.
next time.
Have a good day.
Bye, Terry.